Hey World War II enthusiasts! In today's video we step off the creaking ramp of a German transport ship and right into a sandstorm. Welcome to North Africa. 1941. The sun hits your ice like a flashbang. The ground is dry, cracked, and burns through your boots before you've even found your footing. You're part of the Afrika Korps now, and if the flies don't get you, the heat might. You're 20, dehydrated, and the only German word you're fluent in is mistake. So, before you fall asleep, feel free to like and subscribe, but only if stories from deep inside World War II are your kind of thing. Let me know in the comments what city you're toning in from and what time it is. It always amazes me how far these slow, dusty stories manage to march. Now, get comfortable. Let your mind slow down. We're stepping into another time, not the headlines, just the quiet moments that shaped a generation. Your first real breath of African air feels like someone has held a blow dryer directly in front of your face. It's dry, metallic, and somehow already in your mouth. Your uniform, crisp when you boarded the ship in Naples, is now wilting on your back. Dust clings to every fold. Your helmet itches. Your stomach churns not from fear, but from whatever passed for breakfast on the boat. There's no one here to greet you. No brass band, no speech. Just the desert and a corporal who looks like he lost a bar fight with the sun. He waves you and the other new recruits toward a battered Opel Blitz truck. Its paint sun-peeled and tires half buried in the sand. You throw your duffel in the back, climb up, and instantly regret it. The metal is scorching. You shift around like a cat on a stovetop, searching for shade that doesn't exist. As the truck rattles to life and bounces through the dunes, someone offers you a cigarette. You take it not Baksu smoke, but because it's the only social currency here. You pretend you don't cough. By the time you reach camp, your face is crusted with dust, and your lips feel like cracked porcelain. The tents are more patches than canvas. The men, sunburnt scarecrows in desert gray. Onoff them whistles when he sees you. Fresh meat, he says in a dialect you don't quite understand. You smile weakly. You already miss socks. Your first task isn't heroic. It's digging latrines. The desert doesn't care about your dreams of glory. It wants your sweat. You jab your spade into the ground, which resists like concrete. After 2 hours, you've made a hole barely big enough for a disappointed mouse. Your hands blister. Your morale drops. The sun doesn't. A sergeant walks by and eyes your work. You planning to bury treasure or just your ropes? He mutters. You don't know if you're allowed to laugh, but you do anyway. Later, someone tells you the sergeant used to be a You start wondering what Kindhoff parents name a schoolteacher. Wolfgang. Night falls suddenly. No twilight, just darkness and stars. You've never seen so many. The sky is alive. It humbles you. It frightens you a little. You curl up in your scratchy blanket on the warm sand and listen to wind whistle through the dunes. Someone hums a lullaby in the next tent over. You think about them. You think about your mother's soup and your brother's dumb jokes. You think absurdly about panines, because they're cold, and you are not. The next morning, the desert proves it. The sun leaps over the horizon like it's been waiting to ruin your life. Breakfast is something that tastes like pencil erasers and claims to be sausage. Your canteen is already half empty, and your sergeant warns you not to drink too fast. You'll sweat it out before it does you any good, he says. Which is both helpful and completely demoralizing. You spend the day hauling jerry cans, learning how to camouflage your tent with dust, yes, really, and trying to remember the 50 different parts of a Panzer III's track assembly. You didn't join the Afrika Korps to be a mechanic, but here you are, elbow deep in grease, praying the engine doesn't explode. One guy says he saw Rommel once, swears the man fixed his own tank in the middle of a firefight. Another guy claims Rommel doesn't sleep, he just waits. By noon, you're already half sunburned and fully doubting your life choices. A lizard scuttles past your foot. You watch it disappear into the sand and wonder how it survives. Probably better than you. A fellow recruit shows you how to tie a scarf around your neck to keep the sun off. You're skeptical, but it helps. He tells you it's called a shemig, and that the Bedouins have worn it for centuries. You nod like you already knew that. Historians still argue whether Rommel's arrival actually boosted morale, or just made things more dramatic. What's undeniably, the atmosphere shifted. Every move you make now feels like it's being watched even if it's just by your own imagination. At the mess tent, little more than a tarp and hope you get your first real sense of community. Someone's brewed weak coffee in a rusted tin pot. You sip it slowly, savoring every bitter drop. Another guy shares a story about stealing figs from a local market. He mimes the shopkeeper, chasing him with a broom. Everyone laughs. That night, as you lie in your cot staring up at the stars again, the desert feels less alien, still dangerous, still strange, but less like it's trying to swallow you whole. You wrap your scarf tighter, close your eyes, and let the sand sing you to sleep. Morning rolls in without warning. There's no gentle sunrise, no birdsong, just an unforgiving wall of heat smacking you awake before you've fully stopped dreaming about snow. Your uniform is still damp from sweat, and your boots crunch as you walk, half from gravel, half from the salt of your own dried skin. Welcome to day 1 of desert boot camp. You're told to report to a training circle at 0600. That sounds fine until you realize that circle is just a patch of flat, sun-baked earth surrounded by nothing and overseen by a sergeant with a nose like a hawk's beak and the patience of a jackal. He introduces himself by pointing at a boulder and saying, "Run to it, then back, until I'm bored." There's no cheering crowd, no rallying speech, just the rasp of dry boots hitting sand and a very clear lesson in the Afrika Korps. Survival isn't about glory, it's about grit. You train under a sun that seems like it's actively hunting you. Push-ups in the sand, rifle drills that burn your fingers on the hot metal. Crawling under barbed wire that you swear was sharpened just for this occasion. You flinch at the sound of live ammo cracking over your head, not because you're scared, okay? Maybe a little, but because you weren't expecting your training to feel this real this fast. Halfway through the day, someone passes out. The medics don't panic, they just drag him into a bit of shade and splash him with water like he's a sunburned fish. "He'll be fine," someone mutters. You hope you'll be fine too. You sip from your canteen like it's holy water. One of the more experienced soldiers teaches you how to move like a mirage. You walk in zigzags, keep low, and never assume a dune hasn't been boobied. The British are clever, he says, and the Australians, Air Wars. They're like kangaroos with rifles. You're not sure if that's a compliment or a complaint. And then there's digging, so much digging. You dig slit trenches for cover, shallow pits for sleeping, and deeper ones for the latrines that you're still unfortunately responsible for. The desert, it turns out, doesn't take kindly to holes. Sand collapses, shovels bend, and you learn quickly that shade is a luxury few can afford. During one of these shoveling marathons, a corporal sidles up next to you and tells you a fun fact. The Romans fathered 2 whole legions, he says, marching across the same sand you're crying into now. You nod like you're impressed, but really you're just jealous that they had sandals with airflow. Historians still debate just how well-trained the average Afrika Korps soldier really was. Some say discipline was fierce and the standards brutal. Others argue that Rommel's real genius lay in improvisation, training soldiers to adapt instead of obey. You don't. Carujo's right. You just want to sit down. When you finally do, it's lunch, or what passes for it. A grayish stew of beans and what might be meat, served in a dented tin and eaten with a spoon that's hot enough to fry an egg. You eat every bite, of course. Hunger trumps suspicion. And anyway, your messmate swears it tastes better if you squint. Between drills, You're shown how to maintain your rifle in the dust. It's a Sisyphean task. No matter how much you clean it, sand finds a way. It gets into every crevice, every moving part. You start to suspect sand is sentient. You also learn how to march not just in formation, but across terrain that shifts beneath your feet. Marching here is a lesson in frustration. Every step forward comes with a half slide back. It's like wading through a sea that hates you. By the end of day 3, your legs feel like lead and your back feels like a piano spin strapped to it. Still, you keep going. Everyone does. Because stopping means more drills. You're assigned to a panzer group by weeks. End. Tanks. Big, hot, temperamental beasts, fat, belch smoke, and give you second-degree burns. If you lean against them wrong, you'll meet your driver, a Bavarian, with the build of a refrigerator and a laugh like a cough. He shows you how to refuel without lighting yourself on fire. He says it like he's seen someone fail. At night, you start sleeping under the stars on purpose. Tents, trap, heat like ovens, and there seems nothing oddly peaceful about the open sky. The wind kicks up sometimes and sprinkles you with dust, but you've learned not to fight it. You wrap your scarf tight and let the sand settle in your skin like some gritty desert blanket. One evening, a lieutenant gives an impromptu lecture on local geography. He points to the west and says, "That's Tunisia, beautiful place. You'll probably be marching there soon." He points to the east, Egypt. "That's where Monty's waiting. You don't know who Monty is yet, but you're already not a fan." Quirky fact of the day. One of your bunkmates is convinced you can use camel dung to keep scorpions away. He arranges tiny piles around his cot like landmines. You think's joking until you realize he's not. On day 6, a truck arrives with a radio. The operator sets it up near the command tent, and suddenly you have music. Scratchy, distant, but music. For 10 blessed minutes, a German waltz floats over the dunes. A few men sway. One hums, another wipes his eyes and mutters about his wife back in Stuttgart. It's the first time you see motion crack through the sun-hardened crust of these men, and it gets to you, too, just a little. Training ends not with a ceremony, but with a truck back to the main camp. No fanfare, just sand, more sand, and a sergeant yelling, "Move like you mean it." As if that's ever worked. You are leaner, meaner, and still mildly afraid of the latrines. You've memorized smell of burnt oil. You've learned how to turn a scarf into a sunshade, a sling, and when wet, a makeshift air conditioner. And you've developed a sort of grudging admiration for your comrades, who snore like freight trains but never complain when the stew is mostly watered out. As you lie back on your cot that final night of training, the sky above you wide and blinking with stars, you realize something has shifted. You're not just surviving now, you're adjusting. The desert still hates you, but you've learned how to ignore the worst of its insults. Mostly, your first real battle doesn't come with trumpets or drums. There's no movie moment, no rousing speech, just a crackling voice. On the radio, a jerky map scribbled in chalk, on the back of a crate, and a phrase you've come to dread, "Pack light." It's near Tobruk, a name you've heard tossed around camp like a curse and a dare. A port city held by the British and Australians, heavily fortified and hotly contested. You're told it's vital, you're told it's dangerous, you're not told much else. The briefing lasts 10 minutes. The fear lasts all night. You're wedged into the back of a half-track Befferdon, sweating even in the pre-dawn chill. Your gear digs into your shoulders, and every bump in the terrain knocks your spine out of alignment. Nobody talks. The silence is thick, except for the occasional cough and the ever-present rattle of bolts try and tow work themselves loose from the vehicle. The desert outside is pale, blue, and quiet, like it's holding its breath. Then the first shells start landing, not on you, not yet, but close enough that the air seems to wrinkle. You don't flinch, but only because your brain hasn't fully accepted what's happening. You tighten your grip on your rifle. It's slick with sweat, even though you haven't fired a shot. Then the shooting starts, not drills, not practice. Real fire, real screams. You tumble out of the half-track behind a berm and slam into the sand, heart hammering like it's trying to dig a tunnel through your ribs. Your sergeant is yelling something. You can't hear him. Your ears are ringing. Your vision is jumping. And suddenly it's real. You pop your head up for a look. Bad idea. Bullets cracked past like angry hornets. You duck back down, your mouth is full of sand. Your eyes water from the smoke curling across the dunes. This isn't glory. This is chaos. Beautiful, terrifying chaos. You shuffle forward behind the others, moving from cover to cover. The British are dug in tight trench lines, sandbag walls, and barbed wire that seems to stretch forever. The Australians are out there too. You know, because a Somione yells a curse with an accent that sounds like a surfboard holding a grudge. A machine gun opens up on your left. You dive into a shallow depression in the sand and pray it's enough. It isn't. The sand kicks up around you as bullets chew into the earth. You press your body down until you feel like you might merge with the desert itself. Another soldier slides next, Toyo eyes wide, mouth open, no sound, just panic. Move left, someone shouts. Flank. Maybe it's Sire Sergeant. Maybe it's just wishful thinking. You scramble, trip, recover. The sand fights you every step of the way. Your boots feel like they've been filled with hot glue. Your gear is cutting into your shoulders, like it's personally offended. You find partial cover behind a broken supply crate. It smells like gasoline and fear. Suddenly your hands are shaking, and you're not sure if it's the adrenaline or the heat or the fact that you've finally realized this isn't a drill. You could actually not make it. Not in the romantic war novel way. Just not make it. Just vanish, swallowed by sand and smoke, and a name mispronounced in a telegram, and then it happens. You return fire. You don't think about it. Your body just acts. Your rifle bucks, your shoulder jerks, and somewhere out in that mess, someone might have ducked, or maybe they didn't. You'll never know. And that's probably for the best. There's a moment, just a flash where all fades. The sound, the heat, the fear. Just you, breathing, sand in your teeth, and the knowledge that the desert isn't trying to destroy you. It's just trying to exist. You're the one out of place. Then the order comes to fall back. It's not a rout, but it's not a victory either. You retreat by crawling, crouching, running whatever your limbs will allow. The half-track that dropped you off is gone, probably moved, or melted. You stumble into another vehicle, one of Rommel's new armored cars, and they wave you in. You barely make it. Your mouth is dry, your eyes sting. You collapse into a seat and stare straight ahead. You made it through your first real firefight, just barely. Later, someone slaps you on the back and calls you lucky. You nod, but you don't smile. You don't feel lucky. You feel altered, like some part of you got left behind on that ridge outside Tobruk. Back at camp, the mood is subdued. Not sad, not celebratory, just quiet. A couple of the older soldiers sip weak coffee and talk about the battle in clipped technical terms. Good push on the left, one says. Need better smoke cover, says another. No one mentions the shouting. No one talks about the fear. Everyone knows. You clean your rifle with trembling hands. It feels wrong to let it sit dirty, even though you're exhausted. It saved you. Or maybe you saved yourself. Either way, the sand inside the barrel makes you mutter curses in 3 different languages. Historians still argue whether Rommel's strategy at Tobruk was too aggressive for the resources he had. Some claim his push stretched the Afrika Korps too thin. Others say it was necessary to keep the pressure on the Allies and maintain momentum. All you know is, momentum feels a lot like nausea when you're riding in the back of a half-track, praying the next curve isn't mined. That night, You lie in your cot and replay everything. Not like a movie, more like a stuttered slideshow. The flash of gunfire, the smell of oil, the gritty texture of blood, or was it just Morrison? You don't cry. You don't even feel sad. You just stare at the stars and feel very, very small. And then, the strangest thing happens. You start to laugh. It bubbles up, dry and weird, but it's real. Because someone in the next tent is snoring like a malfunctioning motorcycle, and your bunkmate is muttering about his missing boot, and your feet still feel like they're on fire, and somehow, in this absurd stretch of desert, you're alive. Not just alive. Part of it. You've tasted combat. And it was hot, loud, and deeply confusing. But now, you're not the new guy anymore. You're Afrika Korps. You don't expect to see him. Not in person. Not this close. Rommel, you've heard the name. Whispered like folklore, half man, half myth. All nerve. The Desert Fox, they call him. You figured he'd be behind a desk somewhere in Tripoli, or maybe posing for a camera, far away from the front lines and the grime, but there he is, standing beside a battered Kubelwagen uniform, dusty cap tilted just so, calmly sketching in the sand with the toe of his boot like he's explaining vocation plans instead of assault strategy. You freeze, just for a second, half because of the sun in your eyes, half because he's smaller than you imagined. Not in stature, he's average height, but in presence. Not flashy, not loud, just focused, sharp. His eyes cut across the dunes like searchlights. You're part of a refueling crew today, hauling metal jerry cans that feel twice as heavy in this heat. You catch his glance for a moment. It's quick, assessing, like he's mentally weighing your usefulness. He doesn't say anything to you, doesn't need to. Just gestures to your superior, draws a quick line in the dust with a stick, nods once, and climbs back into his vehicle. The engine sputters to life, and then he's going off into the desert like some fable you weren't quite sure you saw correctly, but you did. And now, everything feels a little more real, or more surreal. Hard to tell. Afterwards, the entire squad won't shut up about it. Did you see the way he moved? Like he knew where every mine was buried. I heard. He once used a mirror to signal a flank maneuver that saved an entire unit. He eats raw onions like apples. Okay, maybe that last one's a stretch, but you can't deny the effect. Morale ticks up. Men walk with their shoulders a little straighter. Even the coffee tastes less like burned socks. Rommel's presence lingers long after his Kubelwagen disappears. You start to hear his voice secondhand filtered through lieutenants and map briefings. Always moving, always improvising, never satisfied with sitting still. One afternoon, during a rare break from the sun, you and a few others are ordered to help dig an improvised observation post on a high dune. It's thankless work, but the view is magnificent, endless waves of tan and gold, broken only by the shimmer of distant British positions. A Feldwebel points out Rommel's favorite observation tactic, climbing dunes with field glasses and mapping out troop movements by watching tire trails and dust patterns. You want to beat the desert? The Feldwebel mutters. You've got to think like it. He taps his helmet. Foxes don't dig deep. They move fast. You learn quickly that Rommel doesn't just lead. He prowls. One day he's spotted near the front with binoculars. The next, he's halfway behind enemy lines, inspecting a captured position before Yenyon's even cleaned up the mess. His habit of traveling with a skeleton staff, no pomp, no press, makes him a ghost with a general's rank. That rattles people. In a good way, mostly. Historians still argue whether his presence truly turned the tide in North Africa, or if it just looked that way through a well-managed lens of propaganda. But in camp, no one doubts it. When Rommel shows up, people move faster, orders get clearer. Confusion dies. The heat doesn't matter so much. You hear stories, some confirmed, some probably nonsense. like how he once drove a motorcycle across a minefield because he didn't trust the sappers. Or how he reprimanded a junior officer, not for retreating, but for retreating badly. Or how he gave chocolate to a group of Italian soldiers just to keep them from crying. Some evenings, Rommel appears unannounced at remote outposts, inspecting gear and asking questions. Simple ones, too. How's your water? How long does it take you to reload? Have I seen any aircraft this week? He doesn't bark. He listens, writes things down, nods. You start sleeping with your boots on, not because of raids, but because you never know when the desert fox might show up and expect you to be halfway into your kit already. One day, during a maintenance shift on the tanks, your crew's fixing a busted ref sprocket. It's greasy, loud work. You're halfway inside the hull, swearing quietly at the sand that keeps finding your eyes. When someone taps the frame, you pull yourself up, expecting the sergeant. Instead, it's Rommel. Again, he doesn't say anything at first. Just watches. Your heart skips. You blink twice, then pretend to look busy. He steps closer and runs his fingers along the track with a surprising familiarity. Nods at your work and says, simply, "It'll do." Then he turns and walks off. That's it. It'll do. And yet, those two words light up the entire crew. The guy who nearly stripped a bolt yesterday is grinning like he's been knighted. You feel 10 pounds taller. It's ridiculous. But also it, ISN. Single quotes too. The thing is, Rommel doesn't treat you like pawns. He treats you like players, which means your mistakes matter. Your success matters. He expects you to think, not just obey. You start noticing how his strategies unfold. Feints, counter-movements, silent flanks, that hard, hours earlier than expected. One time, your unit follows tire tracks, so fresh there are still shedding scent. It leads you right behind an Allied artillery position, completely You capture it without firing a shot. And then there's his obsession with speed. Everything is momentum. Move fast. Hit hard. Retreat smarter than you arrived. No sitting, no waiting for perfect conditions. If you get lost, adjust. If you lose the initiative, steal it back. You don't fight the desert shoe, outdance it. Quirky fact of the week. Rommel writes letters to his wife Lucy almost daily. Sweet ones, apparently. One guy swears he read one where Rommel described the desert sky like a cathedral roof made of sand and fire. Another guy claims he saw Rommel sketch a flower in the corner of a battle map. Doesn't quite line up with the reputation of a relentless tactician, but it makes you wonder maybe that's what keeps him sharp. A soft edge in a hard world. You overhear a British prisoner once young. Clipped accent, covered in dust muttering to his guard, "Bloody Rommel. If he were on our side, we'd be in Cairo already." The guard just shrugs. You get it. Everyone respects the fox, even the people trying to stop him. Rommel's presence becomes part of the landscape. Not constant, but consistent. Like the wind, like a sun. You never know when he'll show up, but when he does, you feel it. Your posture shifts, your breath slows. You pay attention, and that changes everything. Because when you're lying in a foxhole at 3 a.m., staring at a horizon that doesn't care whether you exist, it's easy to feel like a speck, like a replaceable dot in a war that will churn forward no matter what. But when the general himself nods at your work, you feel real. There's a saying you hear on your third week in the corps. He who controls his tank, controls his fate. You're beginning to understand what it means. Your new home is a Panzer III, hull number 324, painted in desert beige and streaked with scars that whisper old battles. It's not glamorous. It stinks like oil and damp leather. One of the bolts near your seat rattles whenever you hit a bump. The turret creaks ominously. But it's yours, or, at least, yours to keep alive. The Panzer is both weapon and prison. Once you're inside, you're committed. There's no casual stepping out when it gets warm. It's warm the moment you start the engine. After 5 minutes off idling, it feels like you're sitting in a boiling kettle wrapped in steel. Your crew, 4 men including yourself, smells like old socks and bad decisions. You all pretend not to notice. You take the position of loader, which means you're wedged between crates of ammunition and the sweaty thigh of your gunner. You lift shells, align them just so, and ram them into the breech like your life depends on it, because it does. Fumble, and you lose seconds. Seconds you can't afford. The gunner, Otto, is sharp-eyed but twitchy. He talks to the cannon like it's his girlfriend. You stopped judging him after your first skirmish the Gutha, when he knocked out a Matilda with a single shot, and then whispered, "Good girl," like he was tucking in a baby. Your driver, Max, doesn't talk at all when Thenjine's running. Too focused, too tense. He has a neck like a tree trunk, and shoulders that filled hatch when he climbs out. He once punched the transmission in frustration, and tank drove smoother afterwards out of fear. Then there's your commander, Klaus, former car mechanic. Loves maps more than people. Wears his goggles even when he sleeps. He's got a sixth sense for terrain, can read a dune like a book. If Rommel is the desert fox, Klaus is maybe the desert meerkat. Nervous, alert, always sniffing out trouble. Your daily routine revolves around that metal beast. You check the oil first thing in the morning, inspect the treads, rotate the turret manually, just to make sure it hasn't ceased to pin the night. You've learned to patch radiator leaks with chewing gum, to clean sand from Thefuo line using pantyhose, and to say a small prayer every time you start the ignition. The desert hates machines. The sand seeps into everything, filters, gears, bearings. You could swear it's trying to reclaim the tank like a lost artifact. You once spent an entire afternoon cleaning a single part of the gun elevation gear, only to find it jammed again. The next morning, you invent new curse words daily. Still, when it works, when everything sinks and the tracks roll smooth, and the gun swings like it's alive, you feel invincible. The engine roars beneath you like a growling dog. The shell casing slides home with a metallic click. The target locks in. Boom, dust, silence, and somewhere out there, an enemy tank crew is climbing out of the smoldering wreck. If they're lucky, you've become a creature of the tank. You think in degrees of traverse. You dream in gear ratios. Sometimes you wake up convinced you're still moving, that the ground is rumbling, that the radio is crackling with commands in Klaus's voice. During a lull in operations, you and the crew are tasked with digging the tank into a defensive position. It's miserable work, digging trenches for a 20-ton steel beast with shovel sand sweat. But when you're done, the Panzer looks like a lion crouching in the brush, waiting to pounce. It's satisfying in a weird, sadistic way, while you rest under the shade of the tank's skirt. Tormer. Otto tells you a bizarre fact. You know the French once tried to invent a walking tank, like with legs. You laugh. Did it work? No, he says. But now, I can't stop imagining this thing walking after us at night. You'll tell him to drink more water and less imagination. That night, Max shows off a photograph of his fiancée. She hates tanks, he says. She says they're loud, ugly things. I told her, you try running from a crusader in a horse cart and then tell me tanks are useless. You all laugh. It's not really funny, but it feels good to make a sound that isn't mechanical or terrified. You begin to notice the rhythm of tank life. Mornings are maintenance, afternoons are movement, nights are waiting, long stretches of stillness interrupted by bursts of chaos. You sit in the heat, fiddling with tools, or listening to the radio chatter, and then without warning it's go time. Your first true armored engagement happens on a Tuesday, because, of course it does. British Crusader tanks, fast and lean, crest the ridge ahead. Your heart jumps. Klaus gives the order with surprising calm. Prepare for contact. Auto loads. You feel the tank tense like an animal. The gun swings. Max angles the hull. You brace. Boom. Your world contracts to the inside of a turret. You can't see the bigger picture. You rely on Klaus's eyes, Otto's aim, Max's hands. You do your part. Load, load, load. Shells slam into the breach. Fired, ejected, repeated. The air smells like metal and fear. A crusader bursts into flames 50 meters away. Another reverses awkwardly, smoke trailing. One gets too close, 50 meters, and you see the crew bail out before Otto's shot even lands. Then comes the counterfire. The whole tank shakes like it's been punched by a giant. You slam your head on the turret wall. Someone yells. The lights flicker. But you're still breathing. The armor held. Barely. Later, when it's quiet again, you climb out and look at the damage. A chunk of side plating is missing. You touch it. It's warm, and it smells like fire and paint. You stare for a long time. Then you climb back in, sit on your seat, and whisper, "She held." Historians still argue about whether the German tanks in North Africa were superior to British ones. Some say better tactics made the difference. Others claim it was training, crew cohesion, or luck. You suspect it's all of the above, with a heavy lean toward luck. That night, you help Max replace a track link under starlight. Otto hums a lullaby says his mother used to sing during air raids. Klaus mutters about bearing sand dust seals. It's oddly peaceful. You fall asleep in the turret with a wrench in your hand and your head against the breach. It's not comfortable, but it's yours. And for now, you're safe. You've learned to dread the words, night watch. Not because of what happens, but because of what might. In the desert, it's not the battle stat, where you're down. It's the hours between them. You draw the graveyard shift. Midnight to 400. Klaus hands you the schedule with a grunt and a half-empty canteen. Don't fall asleep, he says. As if that's a thing you'd do on purpose, in the middle of a pitch-black expanse where jackals laugh like ghosts and allied patrols skulk like shadows. You trudge out to your post, just a narrow ridge behind. The tank sands settle into the sand. Your rifle rests across your lap. The desert is silent, but not still. The wind moves in slow gusts, lifting fine grains of dust that sting your eyes and cling to your lashes. It gets everywhere inside your boots, under your collar, between your teeth. The cold surprises you. During the day, the desert bakes you like a cheap pastry, but at night, it steals heat like a thief. You wrap your scarf tighter and draw your knees in. Somewhere tucked east, artillery flashes light up the horizon like distant lightning. You count seconds between them. 1, 2, nothing. Too far away to hear. Close enough to feel. You try not to think too much. The mind wanders out here. You start by thinking about your family, your sister's clumsy piano practice, your father's terrible jokes. Then you think about food, real food, soup that isn't powdered bread that doesn't shatter, apples, cold beer, ice. You'd give your next 3 rations for ice. Eventually, your brain starts playing tricks. Shapes appear where there are none. The outlining off a man becomes a bush becomes a crate becomes nothing. You blink herd, you rub your eyes, still there, still nothing. You shift your weight, your knee pops, the sound is too loud, and then you hear it. A low howl, carried on the wind, then another. Jackals, maybe hyenas, could be wild dogs. Someone told you a story once about a group of Italian soldiers who swore they were being stalked by a desert lion. You laughed at the time. Now, sitting alone with a bolt-action rifle and exactly 5 rounds, you're not laughing. Another sound, footsteps, maybe. You grip the rifle tighter and slide into a crouch. The sand shifts beneath you, sighing softly. You hold your breath, listen, nothing, just wind. But you're not sure. You think about firing a flare. You were issued one, just in case. But you hesitate. A flare means light. Light means visibility. Visibility means someone, somewhere, might see you. someone who shouldn't. You decide against it. Instead, you whisper into your field mic, asking for a status check. No answer. The battery's irreparably dead. Again, you make a mental note to blame Max for not checking the charge. An hour crawls by. Then too, your eyes adjust to the darkness. You begin to notice the way the moonlight paints shadows across the dunes, the way your breath fogs in front of you, like smoke. Theaway, your thoughts slow, then start to loop. You hum to yourself very quietly. Something simple, something from childhood. It keeps the silence from getting too loud. It also lays anything out there know you're awake. Eventually, the jackals stop. The wind shifts. The stars blink behind a thin veil of cloud, and the fear fades, not gone, just dormant. You hear footsteps again, but this time they're real. Crunching, soft but deliberate. You raise your rifle halfway and call out the password. A voice responds. Familiar Otto. He's brought tea, or something that claims to be tea. It tastes like hot rust, but it's warm, and it's human, and that's enough. He sits next to you for a while, doesn't say much, just sips and stares. Ever wonder if they're watching us, too? He asks after a while. You nod. Probably. You think they're scared? Probably. The two of you sit like that for a while, just breathing, just being. Two young men from cold places, sitting in a hot land that doesn't want them. It's weirdly comforting. Otto leaves before the shift ends. You stay. You finish the tea. You listen. A beetle crawls across your boot. You let it go. Historians still argue whether desert night patrols were strategically useful or just a psychological tool, an effort to keep soldier Silverlord rotating, unsettled. Some commanders believed the quiet was more dangerous than combat, that it gave the mind too much room. You agree? You've seen men snape in the stillness, laugh at nothing, dig trenches no one asked for, stared along at the stars, and forget where they are. The last hour of watch is the hardest. Not because it's the darkest, it isn't. The sky begins to lighten, just barely. A faint indigo glow spreads low on the eastern rim. The desert seems to hold its breath, waiting, as if even the ground knows something is about to change. But your body aches. Your legs are numb, your eyelids droop. You slap your cheek, bounce your knees. Anything to stay alert. You imagine Klaus chewing you out for dozing, and vow not to give him the satisfaction. Then, just when you think you can't hold on, the sun peeks over the horizon like a guilty secret. The first rays are golden, warm, almost soft. The temperature begins to rise, not fast, but steadily. The shadows shrink. The fear fades. Again. You're relieved by a scrawny kid from another platoon. He looks about 15 and has a nosebleed. From the dryness, you give him your scarf. He looks confused, but takes it. You return to camp, boots dragging, eyelids heavy. Max is already up, tinkering with the radio. Klaus is pacing. Otto is asleep, snoring lightly. Yoka laps into your cat and breathe. You survived the night. No bullets, no raiders, no wild dogs. Just your own mind, clawing at the edges of your thoughts, and a cup of metallic tea that might have kept you from slipping into the wrong kind of dreams. Quirky fact, desert jackals, it turns out, often follow military patrols at night. Dronto, discarded food, the scent of oil, and the warmth of engine blocks. You start calling them your ghost platoon. Sometimes, when you're sitting alone, you think you hear one padding, just out of sight, guarding you. You wake up 4 hours later to Sumi and shouting about breakfast. It's burnt toast and rehydrated sausage. You eat it anyway, because you've got another patrol today, and then another, and maybe, if you're unlucky, another night watch tomorrow. You're not sure if that scares you anymore. Maybe it should, but the desert has a way of burning fear out of you slowly, steadily, like the sun rising after a long, sleepless night. The briefing is short, as usual. There's no time for elaborate planning when the enemy might move before your coffee boils. Allied armor sighted west of El Adam, says a captain with permanent skinned lines and a map stained by sweat. We hit them from the left. Rommel wants speed. Rommel always wants speed. You're back inside your panzer before the ink on the orders is dry. Klaus barks coordinates into the mic. Otto is already looking shoals. Max hits the ignition, and the tank shudders to life. You rock slightly in your seat as the treads grip sand, and the whole machine lurches forward with that familiar metallic groan, the kind of sound that means business. It's hot, not in a let's go swimming way more, in a what if the air could punch you in the lungs way. The metal around you practically vibrates with heat. You can smell the fuel, the old canvas, your own sweat. Ya check the shell inventory out of habit? 11 armor piercing, 7 high explosive. Enough, if your aim is good and your luck holds. The plan is simple. Flank the Allied force, hit them before they can regroup, then fade into the dunes. Surprise. Smash, vanish. Textbook Rommel. High risk, high reward, high blood pressure. Your unit advances in a long arc, staying low in a shallow wadi until you're almost parallel to the target zone. You peer through the narrow vision slit, catching glimpses of open desert, the distant glint of enemy armor, end-weight dust clouds, big ones, moving fast, British reinforcements. Klaus curses under his breath. Monty, he mutters, you've never met General Montgomery, of course, but his name carries a weight. Every German in North Africa has heard of him by now. Methodical, cautious, relentless. If Rommel is chess, Montgomery is slow-motion strangulation. His men never quit, and he's got more of them than you do, always has. You crest a low ridge in Fennel-Icy, them Shermans, Crusaders, even a few old sunlight flashes off their a couple of Bren gun carriers kick up plumes of sand like angry wasps. Then Klaus yells, fire. And suddenly, you're in it again. Otto slams a shell into the breach. Your ears ring, and the cannon spits fire. You didn't wait for confirmation. Another shell, another command, another shuddering boom. Enemy shells land nearby, kicking up geysers of sand and shrapnel. One slams into the Dunab and you, sending a cascade of grit over your turret. Max veers hard left, bouncing over rock and bone-dry scrub. You brace your feet and try not to think about how thin the belly armor is. To your left, another panzer takes a hit. Not catastrophic, but it rocks sideways and stops moving. You catch a glimpse of the loader climbing out, limping. He waves you on. You keep going. You have to. You manage to hit one clean, one partial. A Crusader spins, engine smoking. Another reverses behind cover. For a moment, you feel the upper hand tipping toward you. Then the flank opens up. From behind a ridge, more Shermans appear fast, aggressive, coordinated. Klaus shouts, new bearings. Otto adjusts. You load. Fire. The whole tank groans like it's coming apart at the seams. Then dash thud. Not a boom, a thud. Inside the hull, like someone dropped an anvil on the engine block. Everything stops. Smoke begins curling up from somewhere behind you. Max curses. Otto yells, hit. But the tank hasn't exploded. Not yet, Klaus orders. A retreat. Pop smoke. Reverse out. You're moving again, backward this time. Blind, you feel every rock under the treads. You can't see a thing out the rear slit. Then bustly smoke canisters fire. A thick cloud of gray rises around you like a magician's curtain. Max slams the gears. The tank wheezes, and somehow, miraculously, you're still rolling. 5 minutes later, you've cleared the immediate combat zone. You find partial behind a small ridge, near what used to be a palm grove. A truck is burning nearby. Flies already buzz around it. No one speaks. You and Otto climb out to assess the damage. Their rear armor is scorched and dented, but the engine is intact. The left track is half loose though, and one of the road wheels looks like it's been punched by a giant. You'll need hours to fix it. Max sits on a rock, dripping sweat, head in hands. They were waiting for us, he mutters. Maybe they were, maybe they weren't. Historians still debate how much Monty actually knew, and how much was just well-timed luck. Some say Ultra Intercepts gave the British an edge. Others claim it was simply the terrain better scouted, better held. Either way, it felt personal. You open a ration tin and gag at the smell. It's labeled beef, but you'd bet money it's a practical joke. Still, you eat. Your hands are shaking. You don't talk much. Eventually, you manage to repair the track with a mix of elbow grease and sheer German. Otto even finds a loose bolt he claims was sabotaging our luck. He throws it into the sand with dramatic flair. That night, the mood in camp is strange. No celebration, no mourning, just quiet. One of the men pulls out a harmonica. He plays a tune none of you recognize, but it's slow and low, and it fits. A few soldiers sing along in whispers. You sit with your back against your tank and listen. You overhear two officers talking near the mess tent. One says Rommel's pushing too fast. The other replies, he doesn't have a choice. Supplies are drying up. It's now or never. You pretend not to hear. Quirky fact of the night. Someone in your unit insists on wearing a lucky British helmet he found during a skirmish. He's painted it tan and claims it keeps him safe because the bullets get confused. You want to argue, but he's still alive. So, later, when you crawl into your sleeping bag under the open sky, your ribs ache from the jostling, your ears ring from cannon fire, and your arms feel like they've been through a threshing machine. But you're alive. You think about the way the Shermans came over that ridge like ghosts. You think about the men Woe didn't climb out of the burning tanks. You think about Rommel, about Montgomery, about the fact that no matter how many wins you stack up, it never feels like enough. There's always another another dust cloud, another ambush waiting. The desert doesn't play favorites. It just waits, patient, dry, endless, and so you sleep, rifle within reach, boots still on, because tomorrow you move again. The mail truck arrives in a cloud of sand and diesel fumes, honking once like it's an every man within earshot drops what he's doing, whether it's cleaning a gun barrel, fixing a tread, or pretending to be fixing a tread and jogs over. The officers pretend not to care, but you see them lingering near the edge, watching. The letters come in a canvas sack, sorted with the kind of care that suggests someone sneezed the pile first. The corporal reading names has a voice like gravel. You wait. Your name isn't called. You wait longer. Still nothing. Third week in a row. It stings more than you expect. You tell yourself it's fine. Maybe your family forgot to write. Maybe the mail was lost. Maybe the British intercepted it, and laughed at your cousin's handwriting. Maybe nothing happened. That's what worries you. But Otto gets a letter. Two, actually. One from his sister, and one from a girl he refuses to admit as more than just a friend. He reads them both, twice, then folds them neatly and puts them in Utin he keeps in his sock. Just in case, he says. Max gets a postcard with a picture of a mountain and the words, "Don't die, idiot." No signature. He smiles for the first time in days. You go back to your tent and dig out your last piece of chocolate. It's white around the edges now. Probably older than your boots. You eat it anyway. Slowly, like it might taste like home, if you chew long enough. The desert is a cruel place for memory. Every thought of home feels like a crack in your armor. You try not to think about cold, kitchens, ticking clocks, the creak of floorboards, but your brain is stubborn. It gives you phantom smells: bread baking, pine sap, your mother's perfume. You don't know if it helps or makes things worse. Later, you pull out a half-torn envelope from your bag. It's the last letter you got weeks ago, stained with oil and sweat. You reread it. It's nothing special. A grocery list, a joke about the cat, something about a neighbor's broken fence. But you read it again, carefully, like it holds a code you missed the first time. There's comfort in the mundane. Mail call doesn't just bring letters, sometimes it brings packages. One guy gets socks. He weeps. Another gets a can of sardines, which he trades for 2 cigarettes, and a story that's definitely Allie. Someone else gets a tiny stuffed bear from a niece. He sews it to his rucksack. No one laughs. A few unlucky ones get the other kind of letter, the black-rimmed kind, folded tight, handed over quietly. No words, just a nod. One man takes his and disappears behind a tent. When he comes back, he looks the same, but something in his eyes is different, emptier, like a shutter closed. The rest of the day passes slowly. You're assigned to ration duty. Inventory the crates. Note spoilage. Distribute the bread. The bread is a disgrace. Hard as bricks, bitter as regret. You're told it's rye, but it tastes like sandpaper and lies. You saw a man use a slice to hammer a tent peg once. It worked. The water barrels are low again. You take your daily allotment, just under 2 canteens, immediately wish it was more. The sun drinks it out of your skin faster than you can swallow. Max tries to rig a shade cloth, using tent canvas and optimism. It collapses in an hour. Still, ration day has its perks. You'll find a can of peaches buried behind a crate labeled ammunition. You debate whether to report it. You do not report it. Instead, you share it with your crew. That night, 4 spoons. 4 sticky-fingered men huddled around a tin, like it's the Holy Grail. It's sweet, too sweet. You almost gag from the sudden sugar, but no one complains. Otto raises a spoon. To civilization, he says. You clink spoons, and for a moment, the war feels far away. Quirky detail. Someone in the other platoon has started writing fake letters to himself. Elaborate ones. Stories about a fictional sweetheart in a Medley Sill, who owns a flower shop and knits sweaters for cats. He reads them aloud with dramatic flair, and no one stops him. In fact, people start requesting updates. Did Liesel finally get Thelone for her greenhouse? Someone asks. She did, he replies solemnly. But the lavender crop failed. She's devastated. You don't know if it's genius or madness, possibly both. Historians still argue about the psychological value of mail in combat zones. Was it a morale booster, or a painful reminder of what was left behind? Some say letters helped keep men grounded. Others argue they distracted from the task at hand. Either way, you know the truth. It's not about the paper. It's about the connection. Later that evening, you find yourself scribbling a note. No real place to send it. No envelope, just thoughts. You write it on the back of an old field report. You don't even sign it. It says, I miss silence that isn't full of waiting. I miss water that doesn't taste like old coins. I miss not being afraid of the wind. I miss your bad jokes. I miss everything that isn't this. You fold it. Tuck it into your breast pocket. Not for sending, just for remembering. That night, someone passes around a cracked radio. Faint music. Filters through scratchy but recognizable. A waltz. Maybe Austrian. Maybe a figment of imagination carried on static. A few men sway, heads bobbing like ghosts in uniform. One guy hums the melody under his breath until he falls asleep. You stay awake for a while, not scared, just awake. Watching the stars, thinking about mail routes, and wondering if your name will be called next week. Wondering if someone's still writing. You can always tell when supplies are running low. It's not just the ration tins getting lighter, or the bread getting harder. It's in the way. People start counting more carefully, steps, sips, seconds. Conversations become shorter. Tempers flare faster. Every cough sounds suspiciously like a protest. You've seen men fight over a spoonful of jam. Not because it was rare, though it was, but because it reminded them of breakfast. A real breakfast. With sunlight and cleanables and toast you didn't have to chisel. Here, the jam is just tinted sugar paste, but when it's gone, it's like losing a memory. Rommel's campaign depends on fuel, and you know it. Everyone does. Tanks don't run on morale. Trucks don't eat sand. And the desert, in its infinite flatness, demands movement. But fuel convoys are getting thinner. The brightest share hitting supply lines. Italian transports are missing. The roads such as they are riddled with problems, potholes, mines, ambushes, and an entire army of mechanics who've run out of tools. You've started using wire from broken radios to fix fuel pumps. It works. Usually, this morning, you're sent to collect rations for your section. The quartermaster greets you with a shrug and a sigh. He looks like he hasn't slept in 3 days. No beans, he says. No biscuits, half meat, double barley, and these. He tosses a bundle of brown squares onto your crate. You pick one up. What is this, concentrated soup? Soup? Just add water. You flip it over. There's no label. Just instructions printed in faded ink. Boil vigorously. Then lower expectations. You distribute the rations back at camp. The crew receives them with varying degrees of sarcasm. Otto pretends to read poetry off the packaging. Max bites into a biscuit and swears at Krakita Molar. Klaus doesn't comment, he just records everything in his little notebook under a section titled Moralish, Verlist, Moral Losses. Still, you make it work. You boil the soup and eat it with a piece of bread that looks and smells like it was forged in a volcano. It's hot, that's all you can say for it. You close your eyes and pretend it's stew. In the evenings, you get creative. Someone found a spice tin in a captured British truck coming. Maybe. You sprinkle it into the barley one night, and it changes everything. You feel like royalty. One of the medics trades a pack of cigarettes for your next meal. You begin developing what Otto calls field cuisine. Tank-roasted turnips, mud-baked barley patties. Max once tried to fry something on the tank's engine block. It kind of worked. One night, you even managed dessert. A crust of bread, toasted over a lighter, sprinkled with hot powder and crushed aspirin. Tastes like despair, you say. But fancy despair. A guy in the next platoon eats a scorpion on a dare. Boiled it first. Didn't die. Now he's a legend. And then there's the water situation. You're down to strict rationing. 1 full canteen per day. You learn to make it last. 2 sips. In the morning, 1 at lunch, the rest after sundown. Your throat always feels dry. Your lips crack. You try not to think about rivers. When things get really bad, you try old tricks. Wrapping cloth over your mouth to trap moisture. Sucking on pebbles. One time you even tried the camel trick, breathing through your nose and praying. Didn't help. You see a mechanic filtering radiator water through a sock. He swears it works. You don't try it. Not yet. You're given 1 bar of soap a week. It smells like sadness and war crimes. You use it for everything: hands, dishes, laundry, the occasional act of self-care that involves crying in private. Still, you try to stay clean, not out of vanity, but discipline. Rommel once said, "Dirty men fight dirty wars." You're not sure what that means anymore, but Klaus insists you shave every morning, if it's just scraping dry skin off your chin with a dull blade. One night, while collecting discarded cans, you find a British ration tin labeled steak and kidney. It's been opened and picked clean, but for a moment, you stare at it like a relic from a better world. Steak. You remember the word. The taste may be hard to say now. You take the tin and put it in your bag. A souvenir. Proof that somewhere, once someone ate meat that hadn't been powdered first. Historians still argue whether Rommel's supply lines were doomed from the start, or simply outmatched by the Allied Navy and RAF. Some say he was too aggressive, stretching the lines beyond breaking. Others claim He had no choice. That you can't fight a slow war in a fast desert. You stop caring about the arguments. You just want a second helping of anything. And yet, you adapt. You find edible plants. You trade with locals when you can. Dates, occasionally. Olives, if you're lucky. One guy bartered away his boots for a melon. He swears it was worth it. His feet disagree. Quirky fact. Someone in logistics started drawing cartoons on the ration crates. Nothing fancy, just stick figures and helmets, shouting things like Das, Schmeckt, wie Sieg, tastes like a victory. It catches on. Soon, other crates have faces, mustaches, slogans. You start looking forward to them. It's ridiculous. It helps. Max starts writing a cookbook. Seriously. It's titled 50 Shades of Beige, Cooking in the Corps. So far, it includes recipes like fried sand with a hint of regret and shell casing soup. Do not eat the casing. You all add contributions. You agree it'll be published post-war, with photos. The lack of supplies changes how you fight. Fewer bullets mean more restraint. Fewer shells mean better aim. You plan attacks based on what you can recover from the enemy, not what you bring. Every engagement is a shopping trip with guns. You scavenge parts from wrecks, tires, radios, even boots. You once wore a pair of British socks that still had someone's initials sewn into them. You felt guilty, then grateful, then nothing. One afternoon, you and Otto find a wrecked British tank. Inside, 2 crates of rations, unopened, cans of fruit, crackers, actual tea bags. You haul it back like treasure. Share it out under the stars. No one speaks. You just eat. Slowly you savor every bite. Because tomorrow, it might just be soup squares again. Or nothing at all. There's a sound that makes every man in the Afrika Korps flinch, even when he pretends not to. It's not gunfire, not engines. It's wind deep, low, building slowly like the breath of a monster, crawling across the dunes. You hear it in the distance first, and then suddenly, it's all around you. Sandstorm, the cam's in. No warning, no mercy. You're in the middle of a routine maintenance sweep, checking the suspension on 324. Klaus mumbling something about steering ratios, and the tank feeling lazy. Whatever that means when the air changes. It thickens, turns orange. The sun disappears, and the temperature jumps like Simeon lit a match under your helmet. Otto, ever the optimist, says, maybe it'll blow over. 5 minutes later, you can't see your own boots. The storm hits like a wall. Sand pelts every surface, your face, your eyes, your teeth. It howls between tents, slaps at canvas, rattles metal. You tie your scarf around your head, pull your goggles down, and feel like a mummy preparing for battle. You and the crew pile into the tank, not for combat, but for shelter. It's not much better inside. The heat climbs. The dust creeps in through every seam. The turret groans as it rocks slightly on its bearings. You sit in silence, sweltering, listening to the storm, beat against the hull like angry knuckles. Max curses. Otto hums a lullaby. Klaus is scribbling notes on a gene performance in variable weather conditions, because of course he is. Time moves weird in a sandstorm. You can't see the sun, so hours blur together. You try to nap, but the tank's interior is like a sauna full of grit. You sweat in places you didn't know could sweat. You breathe through a damp rag and try to ignore the itching. Someone outside didn't make it in time. You hear them shout. The voice disappears. Later, they're found huddled behind a supply crate, half buried in sand, coughing like they the Sahara. They'll be fine eventually. When the storm breaks, it does so slowly. First, the howling fades. Then the air lightens, just a shade. Then, like a curtain being lifted, the world reappears. Sort of. Everything is coated in dust-red gold, soft, choking. Tents have collapsed. Radios are clogged. Every vehicle looks like it's been dipped in powdered clay. You emerge from the tank like explorers from a cave, blinking and brushing yourself off. Your face itches, your clothes are stiff. Someone tries to stretch and nearly pulls something. Max tries to start the engine. Nothing. Klaus mutters, climbs up, opens the hatch, and removes a handful of sand from the air filter like he's a goat. Try now, he says. The engine roars back to life. He smiles like a proud father. Sandstorms are bad for morale, worse for machinery. But the worst part is what happens afterward. Clean up. You spend the next 2 days shaking out gear, scrubbing the turret bearings, and chipping sand out of the gun mount with a toothbrush. The dust is everywhere, in your ears, your boots, your dreams. You start to wonder if your lungs are half dune by now. Historians still argue whether the Khamsin was more dangerous than combat. Some say it caused more equipment failures than British sabotage. Others argue it was psychologically unpredictable, blinding, and inescapable. You stop caring. Ansio, find sand inside your field watch. Inside, even the food tastes like grit. You pour tea, and it crunches. You eat bread, and it squeaks. Otto bites into a biscuit and says, "I think it chipped a tooth on the wind." You believe him? You start to notice the crew getting snappy. Not angry, just tight, shorter sentences, sharper glares. One night, Max snaps at Klaus over map coordinates. Klaus doesn't respond, just draws a circle and walks away. Later, they make up by fixing the periscope together in silence. It's a strange kind of affection. You develop rituals to stay sane. Otto sharpens his bayonet every night, even though he never uses it. Max rewrites his cookbook, adds a chapter called Cooking Without Hope. Klaus invents a board game involving pebbles and rusted bolts. No one understands the rules, but he wins every time. You keep a diary now. Just a small one, hidden. In your pack, you write about the sand, about the soup, about Rommel, who hasn't been seen in days. You imagine he's somewhere far ahead, plotting another brilliant maneuver while you clean your boots for the 4th time today. One quirky detail: a nearby unit has trained a desert fox, or claims they have. It shows up every few days, eats scraps, and curls up under a truck. They call it Fritz. Someone even painted a little Afrika Korps emblem on its side. You think that's pushing it. The fox doesn't seem to mind. It's not all bad, though. After the storm, the nights are clearer than ever. The stars are so bright it feels like they're shooting off. You lie on your back, helmet under your head, and try to name constellations. Otto insists one looks like a tank. Max sees a spoon. Klaus sees logistics. Naturally, and in the quiet, you start to feel it again, this weird, reluctant bond with the desert. You hate it, but you understand it now. Its moods, its traps, its beauty, in a brutal kind of way. You get mail again. A real letter. Short, sweet, smudged. It says, "We're thinking of you. Stay safe. Don't forget who you are." You read it 3 times, then fold it carefully and put it in your shirt pocket. Later that week, a new batch of replacements arrives, fresh uniforms, clean faces, that wide-eyed optimism you vaguely remember having. One of them shakes your hand and asks, "Is it really that bad out here?" You just smile and say, "Worse." The briefing this morning is different. Klaus says nothing as he folds the map. Otto keeps pacing, like the sand beneath his boots. Is trying to push him somewhere else? Even Max, normally the most stoic among you, has gone quiet. Not angry, not grim, just still. You all feel it. Something's shifting. Rommel has ordered another offensive. East, again. More flanking. More speed. More make them dance before they can dig in. But the catter on the radios says something else. Montgomery is reinforcing. British supply lines are strong. Their tanks are coming in fresh, shiny, and full of fuel. Yours, held together with borrowed parts and stubbornness. Still, orders are orders. You're rolling out by noon. The sun overhead is harsh and unapologetic. You climb into 324, go through the motions, tighten the same bolts, pat the same scratched dashboard for luck. Klaus gives you coordinates. Otto slaps the breech like he's waking it up. Max adjusts the seat cushion he stole from a British tank and claims is the only luxury the desert allows. The engine growls to life, and off you go. The terrain is rocky. Not sand dunes anymore, just long flats of gravel and sun-bleached stone. The tanks bump and grind on rattle with every meter. Your teeth chatter. Your spine vibrates. But the treads hold. You pass a burned-out column of Allied trucks. Twisted, scorched, abandoned. Someone mutters, "Ours did that." Another voice replies, "Not this week." An hour later, you spot them. British tanks. Dozens. Dug in, spaced out, well camouflaged. Crusaders, Shermans, anti-tank guns. Their positions are textbook. To clean, Klaus says. You know what he means. When the enemy looks ready, you should be worried. Rommel's plan calls for speed, so you move. Yuflunk left, as ordered, bouncing between wadis and dry riverbeds. Max drives like a man possessed. Otto's eyes are locked on the targeting scope. You're loading shells faster than you can think. Your first shot hits, your second misses. Then everything explodes. Shells slam into the ground around you, kicking up pillars of smoke and grit. One lands behind the tank and flips the vehicle ahead of you, like a toy. You can't see if the crew escapes. There's no time. Otto yells. Klaus gives a new bearing. Max turns hard, too hard, and your side scrapes a boulder, sending sparks across the hull. You're in it now. The sound is unbearable. Cannon fire, engines, radios, screaming. You can't hear your own breath. You reload. Fire, reload, fire. The shell casing burns your fingers, but you don't stop. You can't. Another tank explodes to your right. Flames rise high. You see silhouettes, maybe trying to run, maybe already gone. Max yells, "Something, can't hear what?" Then a jolt, your tank lurches, hard. You hit your head on the turret rim. Lights flicker, engine coughing. You've been hit. Not a direct strike, somewhere near the tracks. You try to move. Nothing. Max throws it into reverse. Still nothing. You're dead in the water. Klaus shouts out. Out. Otto pulls the hatch. Heat pours in like fire. You scramble out, ducking low, grabbing what you can. The world is chaos. Dust, fire, screaming metal. You run. Not far, just to the nearest ridge. You drop behind it, heart hammering. Your ears are ringing. Your mouth tastes like ash. You look back. Your tank, your home, is smoking. You feel something twist in your chest. Not fear. Not yet. Loss. It's strange how quickly something can feel like part of you. The rest of the unit pulls back. It's not a retreat, more of a pause. A reset. Regrouping behind the ridge. Klaus is already talking to command on the radio. Maxie's swearing at a fuel gauge that doesn't exist anymore. Otto's pacing again. You sit in the dirt and try to stop shaking. Historians still argue whether Rommel insists on bold flanking attacks in late 42 was brilliance or desperation. Some say he was out of options. Others think he still believed surprise could outrun numbers. Either way, this one didn't work. You've lost 5 tanks today to complete a light rot. You don't know how many men. That night, around a small fire, the crew eats what's left of the emergency rations, hardtack, and some kind of tinned meat that Otto claims is kangaroo. No one believes him. No one argues. Someone from another platoon shares news. Rommel's gone back to Germany. Health reasons, they say, or politics. Depends who you ask. His absence feels like a hole punched in the sky. You lie down with your helmet over your face, trying to muffle the wind. You can still hear the explosion, still smell the smoke. You reach into your pocket and pull out a photograph, creased, faded, a street corner. Your brother on a bicycle. A memory of quiet. You tuck it back away. In the morning, you bury the spare shells. No tank to fire them. Might as well lighten the load. Max salvages a radio from the wreck. Says it still works. Klaus claims we can repurpose it to intercept British frequencies. Otto suggests using it as a kettle. Klaus does not laugh. Quirky fact. Someone in the maintenance unit built a chessboard from shell casings and cigarette packs. It's surprisingly good. Max plays every night. Hasn't won once. Still plays. Your orders come through. Pull back further west. Regroup. Resupply. Wait. The word wait sounds heavier than usual. No one says it, but you all feel it. This might be the beginning of the end. Still, you pack your gear, you follow orders, you climb into the back of a truck and watch the desert pass by in silence. You don't have a tank anymore, but you're still Afrika Korps. For now, Tobruk falls fast. Shockingly fast. You don't even hear the official word at first. The rumors reach camp ahead of any telegram whispers over mess tin coffee. Passed between mechanics like contraband cigarettes. They cracked the lines. British surrendered. Rommel's already walking the harbor. You don't believe it until Klaus reads the bulletin aloud the next morning. Standing next to a chalkboard that's already too dusty to see. No speech, just Tobruk has fallen. Our forces are moving in. It's the biggest win since you've been here. Maybe the biggest win in the whole theater. And it feels strange, not triumphant, not joyful, just strange. Like you finally kicked down a door and found an empty room inside. You're told to prep for movement. Again, you're part of the first wave to enter the city's northern perimeter. No tank. But you get assigned to a recon truck with a spare radio operator and a Czech rifle that still smells like the last guy's sweat. The drive is oddly quiet. No fighting. No planes. Just heat and wreckage. Tobruk looks like a town that lost a beat with the sky. Cratered buildings, shattered windows, flags dangling half-burned from balconies. It smells like metal and old bread and something sour underneath. The streets there, littered with papers, maps, pamphlets, even someone's half-written letter. In English, you pick it up, glance over it. Something about duty and sunburn. You put it back down. You pass a row of captured British trucks, neatly parked like someone was expecting to come back for them. One still has a half biscuit on the dashboard. Another has a teddy bear tied to the mirror. You don't touch it. At the harbor, the scene is surreal. German troops are milling about like tourists in too tight uniforms. Some are taking photos. Others are helping haul crates off the docks. British posts sit in groups, eyes tired but not panicked. One of them waves at you. You nod. Otto finds a box of tea and starts handing it out like it's gold. Max, ever practical, steals a chair from a blown-out cafe and straps it to the back of the truck. Klaus finds a roll of maps, spreads them across the hood, and starts plotting lines to Cairo. The jokes begin immediately. Next stop, the pyramids. Better get Rommel a camel. Someone draws a mustache on a poster of Churchill they find in the post office. And yet beneath it all you feel uneasy. Victory came too easily. The British barely fought. The surrender happened in... Historians still debate whether the defenders were undersupplied, poorly led, or simply exhausted. Some argue it was a strategic sacrifice giving up the port to consolidate elsewhere. Others say it was just one more example of desert warfare's brutality. When morale breaks, it shatters completely. You walk past a church with its roof caved in. Inside, sand has drifted up against the pews. A hymnal lies open to a page titled, "Abide with Me." You don't know the melody, but the title sticks. Back in camp that night, the celebration is restrained. You get extra rations, real meat, bread that's soft. A bottle of something strong makes its way down the line. You take a sip. It burns. Someone strings up lights between two trucks. Otto finds a harmonica. Max tries to dance, sprains his ankle. Klaus actually laughs. The stars overhead are clearer than ever. They don't care who won. You climb up on the hood of your truck and sit alone for a while, watching, listening. Victory in the desert doesn't feel like you thought it would. There's no music swelling, no crowds cheering, just a strange silence. Relief, maybe, or exhaustion. You wonder how many men didn't make it to see this. You wonder if it was worth it. You wonder what comes next. Because Rommel isn't stopping. He never does. The momentum is his drug, and now that Tobruk is taken, the push to Egypt begins in earnest. Klaus confirms it the next morning. El Alamein is the next objective. El what? Otto says, chewing on the end of a pencil. Alamein, Klaus repeats. Fortified ridgeline, British strum point. If we take it, we're on the doorstep of the Nile. Max groans. Can we take a nap first? You spend the next week preparing for the push. Vehicles repaired. Shells stocked. New recruits arrive, fresh faces, with clean boots and wide eyes. You give them advice they won't take. Tie your scarf tight. Don't trust the water. Learn to sleep. In 3-minute bursts. They smile. Say thanks. You know they'll learn the hard way. One quirky fact. Someone starts painting names on the trucks. Yours gets Gazella, after Klaus's ex-girlfriend. You ask if that's a good omen. He shrugs. She was fast, temperamental, and impossible to steer. Seems fitting. The heat gets worse. The air feels heavier, like it's bracing for something. You check your rifle obsessively. Your uniform is more patched than fabric at this point. You've started cutting holes into the soles of your boots for airflow. It works. Sort of. The trucks roll out at dawn. Engines sputtering. Radios crackling. Men half asleep. Rifles across their laps. You're all heading east again. Always east. Rommel is back. Rumor has it he returned early. Sick or not. Refused to miss Tepish. That sounds like him. Historians still marvel at Tobruk's fall. How quickly it happened, how few lives it cost, how deeply it rattled Al-Adikam. Some see it as Rommel's peak, others, the beginning of his end. The last uncontested note before the long, grinding decline. But in that moment, all you know is, you won. You were there. You saw the white flags. You walked the streets. You drank the tea. And tomorrow, you march again. You don't just march toward El Alamein, you crawl. Not literally, though it feels that way. The vehicles groan with fatigue. The men even molest. Every rotation of the wheels sounds like a prayer held together with rust and willpower. The desert seems to stretch longer with each kilometer, as if it's mocking your ambition. You sit in the back of a truck, now your old Panzer, still sits. In ruins, back near Tobruk. Every bump in the road knocks the breath from your lungs. The bench is splintered. The canvas roof sags. You press your head against the rifle case and try not to think about the fact that the bottle of water at your side is now your only bottle of water. Max drives the truck. He whistles sometimes. Badly. Otto rides shotgun, legs on the dash, reading a torn-up spy novel someone found under a mattress in a captured bunker. Klaus, riding in the second vehicle behind you, keeps sending up hand signals every 10 minutes, no nyof, which seem to mean anything important. Probably just making sure he's still in charge. The sun feels heavier lately, like it's not just light and heat anymore, but weight. You feel it pressing down on your shoulders, cooking your helmet, turning your shirt into a wet sponge glued to your back. The inside of your boots slosh with sweat. You haven't been dry in weeks, and then the breakdowns start. The first is a truck carrying munitions. One of the axles cracks. The second is a water truck. The radiator hisses, spits, then dies. The entire convoy stops. Men clamber out, coughing, stretching, cursing. You help push the truck to the side. Sand fights you with every step. You curse back by sundown. You're 5 vehicles down and 20 kilometers behind schedule. Still, the order comes. Push. On the trail gets worse, rocky, uneven. The old Roman roads that once ran through this land are now buried under centuries of sand and warfare. You've begun to fantasize about real pavement. A curb, a drain, something solid beneath your boots. You pass a caravan of camels, led by Bedouins. They watch you quietly. You wave. One of the older men adds. The camels look unbothered. You envy them. That night, you bivouac near a dry creek bed, not because it's strategics, because you can't go another kilometer without collapsing. Fear smells like engine oil and desperation. Your dinner is a biscuit soaked in saltita. You chew slowly. Otto offers you a spoonful of something unidentifiable in a tin. You decline. He eats it anyway, and immediately regrets it. Max tries to tell a joke about a British soldier, a camel, and a crate of sardines. He forgets the punchline halfway through. Gund just laughs instead. You all join in, not because it's funny, because it's something. Later, Klaus gives a quiet update. Supplies behind. Fuel's low. Orders unchanged. You stare at him. We're marching on foot if this keeps up. He nods. No joke. No joke. Historians still argue whether the push toward El Alamein was tactically sound or suicidally ambitious. Rommel was sick. The tanks were breaking down, and the fuel situation was desperate. But momentum is a tricky thing. When you've been winning, it's hard to stop moving even if you're marching on fumes. The desert isn't helping. Dust storms rise without warning. Heat mirages shimmer in the distance, tricking your brain into thinking there's water ahead. You fall for it at least once a day. Otto says he saw a lake. Klaus insists it was just sky reflection. Max claims he saw a fish jump. You make camp under an outcropping of rock. It gives a sliver of shade. You share a can of beans. Klaus breaks out a small radio and tunes it to scratchy music French. Maybe. No one recognizes tune, but you listen like it's holy. Someone finds a turtle crawling near the edge of camp. It's dusty, tired, and missing a chunk of shell. You gather around it, like it's the first miracle you've seen in weeks. Otto names it Hans. Max feeds it water. Klaus draws a diagram of its footprint. It vanishes by morning. One quirky fact. A guy in the signals unit has started sending fake love letters over the wire. Just snippets. Enough to confuse the listeners. Darling, the moon over El Alamein reminds me of your eyes. I long for your scent amid Dagon powder. Someone in HQ is furious. Everyone else secretly entertained. On day 6 of the march, you lose a wheel. Literally. It rolls off into a ditch. That truck lurches sideways. Max curses the ancestors of every mechanic who touched it. You all pile out and start digging a ramp to brace the axle. That's when the plane comes. Low, fast, British markings. The siren starts a beat too late. By then, the first round of bullets has already stitched across the sand. You throw yourself behind a rock. Max lands face first in a trench. Otto dives under the truck. Klaus stays standing long enough to mark the plane's trajectory, then finally ducks. It circles once, then disappears. No one's hurt, just shaken. You sit in the dust afterward, heart pounding, teeth grinding. Otto offers you a cigarette with trembling fingers. You take it. Even though you don't smoke, you cough. He laughs. You're getting better at that, he says. You flip him off, half smiling. That night Max sleeps with his wrench in his hands. Klaus scribbles furiously in his notebook. Otto sings to himself in low, hushed tones, something sad and sweet and out of tune. You stare at the stars and wonder if they look different from Egypt, because that's where you're headed, broken axles and all. You don't realize the tide is turning until it's already dragging you backwards. It begins quietly, not with defeat, but with doubt, a subtle shift in the way men speak, the way they move. The jokes are fewer. The silences are longer. The glances toward the horizon linger just a little too long. Even Otto, who once claimed he'd cook a sand Rat, before admitting tea, stops humming during maintenance. Fuel becomes precious. Not valuable precious. You guard every canister like it's filled with diamonds. Convoys arrive late, or not, at all. Rumors swirl of British aircraft destroying entire lines in a single raid. You don't see it, but you believe it. You have to. How else can you explain the fact that you're down to siphoning gas from wrecks? Your truck now carries half the platoon. No one complains. You sleep in shifts. One man drives while the others doze like sardines in Utin. Klaus times everything. Max hoards matches. Otto, bless him, still insists on keeping a corner off the truck for his pantry, which currently contains a tin of jam, one cracked bowl, and a pebble shaped like a chicken leg. The British push hard now. Montgomery isn't flashy, but he's methodical. He doesn't race, he grinds. And with every day, you feel more ground slipping under your boots. You try to keep moving. That's the order. Keep moving, but everything is slower. Your last tank lies abandoned outside El Daba, burned out. The turret melted to slag. It wasn't ever replaced. Now it's just you, your rifle, and whatever vehicle still rolls. You sit in the back with your feet braced against a crate of mortar shells, bouncing over every rut like a rag doll. And then, one morning, the radio goes quiet. Not static, quiet. No chatter, no updates, just nothing. Klaus bangs the set twice. No change? Otto jokes. Maybe. The war's over. No one laughs. That night, around the smallest campfire you've ever seen, just a matchbox flare in a soup can you. Listen to Max describe how far it is to Benghazi. You don't ask why. You already know the implication. We might have to walk. The food is dwindling. Water is now rationed by the hour. You suck on fabric to keep your mouth moist. You stop using soap entirely. Your shirt is stiff with salt and dust. Your fingernails are black. You forget what clean feels like. Then comes the worst blow, air superiority. You hear the British bombers before you see them. First just a thrum, then a growl, then a roar. The sand dances in your boots. Thet trucks bounce from the shock waves. You dive under the chassis as the sky lights up like a thunderstorm made of fire and steel. It's not precision bombing. It doesn't need to be. Just pressure. The kind of pressure that breaks people before it breaks equipment. The supply depot at Fuka is hit. Flames rise high enough to be seen from 30 kilometers away. You watch from a ridge as crates of ammunition detonate like fireworks gone mad. You feel each one in your chest. Later, you go to help recover. What's left of it, anyway? Craters. The size of swimming pools. Blackened fuel drums. Bent tools. Melted wheels. Boot prints that end mid-stride. You find a helmet, half full of sand. You leave it there. You start hearing whispers. Rommel wants to pull back. He's sick again, or tired, or furious. Depends who you ask. Historians still argue about this phase. Some say he requested retreat and was denied. Others claim he hesitated too long. All Yauk knows is that the wind is no longer at your back. It's in your face now, and it stings. One morning you wake to find the truck gone, not stolen, requisitioned. Higher command needed it. They left a note. You carry it around for 3 days, unsure whether to laugh or burn it. Now, you're on foot. Marching west, boots cracked, lace frayed. Pantry now rides on a makeshift sled he ties to his waist. Klaus mutters logistics equations under his breath like they'll conjure a truck from thin air. Max builds a walking stick out of a broom handle and some bandages. The retreat isn't panicked. Not yet. It's organized, disciplined. You pull back to prepared lines, dig in, then do it again. But there's no denying the direction. One quirky moment. As you pass an abandoned British camp, you find a crate full of soap and shaving kits. Klaus takes one. You all follow. That night, you wash your face for the first time in weeks. It feels. Alien. Otto shaves half his beard and leaves the other side for balance. Max uses his risotto cut open a stubborn can of beans. You call it luxury. It lasts 20 minutes. Then, the next day, another bombing run. And the clean faces go back to dirt and soot. Still, you keep walking. At one point, you pass a camel skeleton, sun-bleached, teeth still intact. Klaus estimates it died 6 months ago. Max says, lucky guy. No one corrects him. You find shelter in the ruins of Asmel village, just a few walls and a collapsed minaret. There's writing on one of the stones, Arabic maybe, or older. Otto says it's probably a curse. Max says it can't get any worse. Klaus says everything can get worse. At night, you lie down with the stars above you and your boots still on. You wake every hour to check your gear. It's habit now. You can't stop. You dream of trucks, of tanks that still move, of days when retreat wasn't the first plan, of Rommel standing on a dune, arms crossed, waiting for a miracle. You wonder if he dreams too. You don't remember when the order came through, only that it did, quietly, like an apology no one wanted to say aloud. Retreat, not fall back. Not tactical repositioning, just retreat. Rommel's lines have buckled. The British have broken through. El Alamein has held. And now, the Afrika Korps is going west, chased by dust, hunger, and British tanks with fresher tracks and fuller fuel cans. You hear it first in the way the map change. The arrows no longer point forward. They loop backward, days of travel erased by a few red strokes. Klaus spends an entire morning redrawing the campaign map on a torn crate lid, then throws it in the fire without saying a word. The truck's wet few still run are overloaded. Fairest of you walk. You're used to that now. Your boots are more patched and leather. Thistles flap when you run. You tie them tight with wire and tape. Max wraps his feet in rags. Otto walks barefoot sometimes, claiming it builds desert strength. It mostly builds blisters. The heat doesn't care. It's the same weather. You're winning or losing, but the cold feels different now. The nights stretch longer, and the desert winds cut deeper. Without fuel, there's no fire. Without fire, you shiver yourself to sleep. You huddle under your jacket and try not to dream of snow. There's no point in pretending anymore. The phasers stopped giving speeches. The sergeants stopped faking confidence. Even the radio broadcasts sound half-hearted. The songs are still cheerful, but quieter, war-weary, faint. Supplies, worse than ever. You get a slice of bread the size of a cigarette pack and some paste that tastes like regret. Water comes in rusty cans passed down the line. You learn to drink around the metal flakes. You tell yourself they're iron supplements. Quirky. Trick of the week. Otto claims you can use hot sand as a foot soak. It opens the pores, he says. Max calls it toes on toast. You'd try Itins. You'd rather not discuss the results. Sometimes, you pass abandoned vehicles. Yours, theirs. Doesn't matter. Some are burned out. Others are intact, just left behind when the petrol dried up. You check each one. Klaus insists on cataloging the parts, fan belts, hoses, bolts. He writes them down even if they're unusable. Maybe just to feel like something can still be counted. One day, you come across a broken-down ambulance. Inside, bandages, morphine, a few British cigarettes. Outside, silence. You sit in the driver's seat for a while, hand on the wheel. You imagine turning the key, driving back to Berlin, or anywhere. But there's no key, and there's no petrol. Just the illusion of choice. You push west. British planes return like bombing runs at dawn, strafing at dusk. You barely look up anymore. You hear the enginescent duck on reflex. Sometimes they pass. Sometimes they don't. The sand explodes around you. You hit ground. You count to 10. You keep moving. At one point, you're assigned to dig defensive trenches outside of Mersa Matruh. The soil is rocky, baked hard. Your shovel bounces off it like metal on stone. Otto tries using a bayonet. Max uses a frying pan. Ya will sweat through your shirts, cursing a patch of earth that refuses to yield. You hold the line for 2 days. Then the order comes again. Pull back. Rommel sends a message. We are not retreating. We are reorganizing toward a more sustainable position. You don't believe it? Not really. But it sounds better than the truth. One night, while camping, in an old quarry, a chaplain holds a quiet service. No ceremony, just words. He doesn't talk about victory. He talks about survival, about how endurance isn't just physical, it's spiritual. He doesn't look anyone in the eye. You listen anyway. Afterwards, someone sings. Not loud, not joyful, but real. You sit beside Otto and Max, sharing a cigarette rolled from paper torn off a field manual. Klaus sharpens his knife in the corner. The stars blink above. The wind howls. The next morning, Otto finds a scorpion in his boot. He names it Gunther. You march 30 kilometers the following day. At one point, you pass a supply officer. Riding a donkey, not a truck, not a horse, a donkey. The beast looks as tired as you do. The officer waves. You wave back. You wonder if it's a hallucination. You hear rumors. The Americans have landed in Morocco. French forces are shifting. The British are pushing from one side, the Yanks from the other. Tunisia is the last stop. Historians still argue whether this low backward bleed was Rommel's greatest test or his final unraveling. Some say he performed miracles with what little he had. Others say it was a war already lost, just waiting for the paperwork. You don't argue. You're too busy walking, too busy watching the line get thinner each day, too busy remembering the names of men you haven't seen since Tobruk. And yet, you joke. You still joke. Otto swears he saw a mirage of a Berlin beer hall yesterday. Full tap, warm pretzels, a girl named Ingrid who kept refilling my glass. Max asks if she was wearing boots or just socks. Klaus writes it down. Possible tactical delusion, reinforcement, morale strategy. You reach the outskirts of Benghazi a week later, or what's left of them. You're told to dig in, rebuild, regroup. The coastline lies just beyond the ridgeline. You can smell salt on the breeze, the sea, the real edge of the world. You don't know what comes next. But you're here, still standing, still dust-covered, fuel-starved, sunburnt, and hollow-eyed. But here, Afrika Korps, and moving west, you reach Tunisia, in a convoy that looks more like a funeral procession than an army. What's left of the Afrika Korps stumbles across border with cracked boots, smoke-stained uniforms, and a 1,000-yard stare that no one bothers to hide anymore. The vehicles roll on mismatched tires. Half the tanks are being towed. The other half are being pushed by men like livestock. You find yourself posted outside Medinian, not because it's strategic, but because Etha's water. Not much, not clean, but water. You set up camp in the shade of a collapsed olive grove. You dig shallow trenches and unpack equipment that hasn't worked in weeks. Klaus tries to rewire the field radio, using a fork and some copper thread. Otto builds a fire, using a car door and part of a fence. Max volunteers to dig latrines just to feel useful. You are, by this point, excellent at pretending this is normal. The wind still kicks up dust. The air still tastes like metal and old oil. But Tunisia feels different, greener in places. Hillier smells faintly of lemons when the breeze shifts. You try not to think about why you're here. The truth is, you're boxed in. The British press from the east. The Americans now roll in from the west. The sea is behind you. The mountains close off the north. You're running out of space, and Rommel knows it. Not that you've seen him. He's gone again sick, some say. Others whisper. Berlin summoned him. Command changes, Officers rotate. Orders become vague. Lanes of communication start to blur. Sometimes you get told to advance on a sector that's already been abandoned. Sometimes you build defenses just to be ordered to leave them the next day. Still, you work. Because the alternative is standing still. And standing still is what gets you shelled. One morning, you're sent to reinforce a nearby battery position, a ridge outside Marith. Klaus goes with you. Otto stays behind Togard, the truck. Max is in the infirmary with what might be dysentery, or might just be too much optimism boiled in old water. The ridge is steep, the climb exhausting. Uriok, the top, and find nothing. No battery, just a hole, and a single pair of boots, lying at the edge, filled with sand. You sit down and laugh, because what else can you do? Klaus takes a photo, just the boots. You don't ask why, you stay up there all night, just in case. It gets cold, then colder. You huddle under a tarp, and listen to the wind howl down from the mountains. Somewhere out there, the Americans are moving closer. You see headlights flicker across the valley floor like fireflies. Too far to shoot, too close to ignore. At dawn, you descend. No orders come, so you wait. And that's the worst part now. Not fighting, not marching, waiting for orders. For reinforcements, for trucks that never arrive, for food that's already been eaten. For a war you suspect ended months ago, just no one told you. Quirky detail. Someone in your new unit has a harmonica, a real one. Every night, he plays Thesum song, something slow and winding. You don't know the name, you don't ask. It starts to feel like the national anthem of disappointment. Otto paints a flower on the side of your trek, just a daisy. He says it makes the vehicle feel gentler. You believe him. Max returns, thinner and quieter. He says the infirmary ran out of bandages. They're using turn maps now. You try to laugh. You fail. Rations are now half what they were 2 weeks ago. Water is distributed by hourglass. Fuel is theoretical. Joe haven't moved the truck in 4 days. Still, command insists you hold. Historians later call this the slow collapse. Tunisia becomes a cage. The Allies press in with patience and steel. You see them now, Shermans cresting hills, half-tracks sliding through olive groves, planes overhead at all hours. The sky belongs to them. One day, a squad returns from patrol carrying crates, captured American supplies, inside fresh bread, soap, coffee, real coffee. You nearly cry. You share it that night around the fire. It's strong, burnt, wonderful. You think of Berlin, of family, of the city lights, streetcars, church bells. You think of peace not as an idea, but as a place, a street corner, a kitchen, a chair that doesn't wobble. Then the shelling starts again. You dive into the trench, wait it out. You're getting good at waiting. One afternoon, you're ordered to help move the wounded. Not to the rear, there is no reanimatory, but to a schoolhouse turned hospital near Gabs. You load stretchers into a supply truck, missing half its roof. Inside, too many men, not enough bandages. The medic has blood on both sleeves. He wipes his hands on the wall, says he's out of clean towels. You hand him yours. He nods once, doesn't say thank you, doesn't need to. That night, you sleep sitting up, rifle across your knees, jacket pulled to your chin. The dirt beneath you feels warmer than the air. You dream of trains, then someone shakes you awake. New orders, move west again, further toward Tunisia's spine, into the hills. You pack up, without a word, because at this point, everyone knows what it means. There's nowhere else to go. You don't see it happen all at once. There's no single trumpet blast, no dramatic final stand, no proud last charge across a dune. The collapse comes in fragments, in broken radios, in empty supply trucks, in whispers shared between sentries who have started hiding extra rations, just in case. It begins with the maps. They stop showing gains. Then they stop changing. Then they stop altogether. By now, you're near the edge of the Tunisian mountains, boxed in between ridges and sea. Ramol is gone again. Not sick this time. Reassigned. Or removed. No one really knows. A new general takes over. His name is unfamiliar. His voice forgettable. His face tired. You're told to hold the pass. You do. For 6 days. Then you're told to hold a different one. You dig trenches. Then abandon them. You build barricades. Then burn them to keep warm. By the second week, even the officers have stopped pretending this is anything but the end. The trucks vanish. Fuel gone. Tires shredded. One man tries to ride a bicycle 20 kilometers with a jerry can strapped to his back. He returns 3 days later without the bike or the fuel. Just a sunburn and a stare that doesn't focus anymore. You make camp in an olive grove turned battlefield. The trees are half shredded by shrapnel, blackened and twisted like they've been struck by lightning over and over again. You string your tarp between 2 trunks. Otto sleeps on a bed of ration boxes. Klaus builds a water still out of tin lids and hope. Max reads aloud from a war manual he found in a ditch. Chapter 6. Tactical Encirclement. You don't know if he's mocking it, or just pretending things still have rules. Rations are gone. Water trickles in from distant villages when Felicals feel generous, or desperate, or bored. One man trades his watch for a loaf of bread. Anno gives up his boots for a bucket of olives. You trade a box of unused mortar shells for coffee. It tastes like fuel. You drink it anyway. Every night, the sky glows faintly framed direction of Tunis. Fire. Bombing. You can't tell anymore. You talk less. Not because there's nothing to say, but because everything worth saying has already been said. Or because no one wants to speak their worst thoughts out loud. What if no one comes? What if this is it? What if we're forgotten? Quirky detail. Someone starts painting birds on the helmets. Not eagles. Not falcons. Just birds, sparrows, pigeons, doves, small, unimportant things. Otto gets a crow on his Max, paints a stork. Klaus refuses, says he's not superstitious, but then sketches a lark inside his boot. The artillery comes in heavier now. The British and Americans know where you are. They have the range, the advantage, the air. You hear their planes. Like Sander, before the storm, circling, waiting. Sometimes they don't even drop bombs, just few leaflets. Warnings. Surrender. You are surrounded. No one is coming. You burn the papers, but they do their job. Not on your hands, on your faces. One morning, you wake to find the lieutenant. Gone. Not dead. Just gone. His gears still sits by the trench. His rifle, his boots, his notebook, half-dash filled. Klaus reads the last line aloud. No use pretending anymore. No one argues. You man your position anyway. Because even if this is the end, there's still the act of standing, of being, of refusing to vanish without doing what you came here to do. On the 12th day, they come. Not a charge. Not a blitz. Just pressure shells from the hills. Tanks from the valley. Men moving slow and steady, with cover fire and loudspeakers offering another round of surrender terms. Your CO tells you to hold. You do, for 3 hours. Then your trench is flanked. Max takes shrapnel to the leg. Otto drags him down the slope, while you cover them, firing blindly, sweating into your scope, gritting your teeth as the bolt jams fourth time in 10 minutes. You fall back to the grove. Then further. Then there's nowhere else to go. You hide in a stone hut? No. Roof half collapsed. Max is pale. Klaus tears a shirt into strips. Otto crouches in the corner, rifle in hand, watching the door like it owes him money. Then comes the whistle, and the voices. In English, and French, and Arabic. You raise your hands. There's no other option. You don't throw down your rifle. You place it down, gently, like a sleeping dog. The soldier who greets you is young, American, smiling, even. He offers you a cigarette. You don't take it, not out of pride, just, you don't have the energy. Later, they process you. You're tagged, listed, questioned, searched. Your pack is taken. Your boots, for some reason, are inspected more carefully than your weapon. You're loaded into a truck with 20 other men. Some you know, some you don't. No one talks. The road back is quiet, long, winding, hot, and weariedly gentle. You don't sleep that night. You lie in your cot inside the POW camp. There are walls now, barbed wire, beds, rations, water, shade, safety. But you don't feel safe. You feel unfinished. You stare at the canvas above you, listening to Otto snore, to Max shift in pain, to Klaus mumbling notes in his sleep, and you think, it's over. I made it. I'm alive. And somehow, I miss it already. You wake in the camp to birdsong. Actual birds. Not engines. Not sirens. Not the metallic chomp of a tank track over loose stone. Just birds. Cheerful, oblivious creatures hopping between fence posts and dusting their feathers in gravel like nothing happened. Like the world didn't catch fire and burn itself into memory. It's been 2 weeks since your capture. Maybe more. Time moves differently now. Slower, but heavier. You mark the days on the underside of your cot with the stub of a pencil zooming in. You're up to 14 small lines. Otto's up to 12. He swears he missed a couple. The American guards are polite, almost disconcertingly so. They speak in clipped English. They smile. One of them gave Klaus a book about American baseball and tried to explain the rules. Klaus is still confused, but he reads it anyway. Your world is fenced in. High wire. WATCH TOWERS. But it's clean, predictable. Meals are delivered. On time. Showers exist. No one shoots at you. You almost resent it. Because here, in this strange quiet, your mind finally has room to stretch, and it's not always kind. You remember things you didn't have time to feel before. A boy's shoe, in the sand near Tobruk. The man with the biscuit on the British truck dashboard. The time Otto creed one, he thought no one was looking. The moment Max looked up from his bandaged leg and said, I don't want to go home like this. You start to write it all down. The guards give you a notebook, blank pages, clean lines. You fill them with names, sketches, places, jokes, regrets. You sketch the map of North Africa from memory. You get Libya wrong, but it still looks familiar. Like a scar you can trace with your fingertip. Klaus builds a sundial in the yard. Just a stick and a ring of rocks, but it works. He records angles in a little table and declares himself chief chronologist. No one argues. Otto carves a bird into the post near the latrines. A lark, he says. Like Theon in his boot. You ask if it's for luck. He shrugs. Maybe it's just to prove I was here. Max walks again. Slowly, with a limp, but he walks. He's quieter now, less. But one night, during roll call, he slips a note into your pocket. It says, if we'd had one more tank, or one more week, maybe. You don't know what to do with that, so you fold it and keep it in your shirt. The camp holds hundreds of you now. Afrika Korps, Italians, a few stragglers from Uther Regiment. You never even knew were in theater. You all nod at each other, not comrades, just survivors. People who know what the desert sounds like when it's hungry. Every few days, the Red Cross comes. They bring letters. Some even reach right men. Klaus got one from his sister. Otto, miraculously, got one from the girl he never admitted was his. Max got none. You got one from your brother. Short. Just a few lines. They said you were gone. I didn't believe them. Come home. You don't cry. Not until later. Not until the lights go out and the camp is still, and your breath finally slows down long enough to remember what your kitchen smelled like in the winter. You stop counting the days after 20. It no longer feels like something to be measured. Instead, you watch the men around you shift, change, soften. They share food, socks, secrets. Someone organizes a play. It's bad. Everyone laughs. Another writes a song. It has no melody. Everyone sings it anyway. Even Klaus smiles now. He's building a calendar out of bottle caps. Because why not? One quirky thing. The guards start calling your barracks the quiet ones. Not because you're unfriendly, but because none of you ask for anything. You're used to not having what to need. They don't know how to respond to that. One of them, a kid with a sunburn and a Tennessee accent, asks you what the desert was really like. You say, loud, then too quiet, then too loud again. He nods, like that makes sense. Then he gives you another pencil. Historians later call Tunisia the grave of the Afrika Korps. They mark it as the end of Germany's ambitions in Africa. The end of Rommel's myth. The start of 1,000 memoirs. But for you, it's something smaller, stranger. It's the place where you stopped being a soldier and started being a witness to dust, to motion, to everything that couldn't be fixed with a spanner or a bullet. You were there. You carried jerry cans through minefields. You boiled tea in shell casings. You fought tanks with rusting tools and half a prayer. You saw Rommel twice. You saw the sea. You saw a boy name a scorpion and paint a crow on his helmet. You saw the desert stretch wide enough to swallow fear. And now, when you close your eyes, you still hear the engine, just idling, waiting. But for now, it's time to let that engine fade. Let your breath settle into something softer. You've made it through the heat and the grit, through laughter and long marches, through things too complicated to name, and now there's nothing left to carry but the quiet. Picture yourself lying back on a clean cot, a thin pillow beneath your head. The wind outside is gentle, not cruel, and above you, a wide, clear sky. No searchlights, no just stars. Each one a moment, a face, a sound that once mattered. Let them drift. Let the dust settle in your memory like snowfall. The war can wait. You're not in the truck anymore, not in that trench, not in the hollow of some Tunisian hill. You're safe, held in the hush of things survived, and the birds, still singing, still here, still free. So close your eyes and sleep, soldier, sleep.